Hi there, Dan here from GeekCast Radio, doing a different type of video. I've been going through a lot of the Marvel Fresh Start titles, giving you my thoughts and opinions on them, let you know if I feel they're actually a fresh start or if they're any good. And I thought, now that we're through a few months of the Fresh Start relaunch, and most of the major titles have come out at this point. Some have 4 issues, some have only have 1. I think we only have a couple left, The Punisher and a few others. That was a good time to kind of go through and take an overall look of how well has it gone so far. And I thought the best job to do it would be actually ranking all the books, starting with my least favorite to my actual favorite by the end of this. And if you've been watching these reviews, probably none of this is going to come as a huge surprise. But overall, I will say, if you've been watching those reviews, you know that I thought Fresh Start has been a very huge success for Marvel. I know people had a lot of apprehension, thought it was ridiculous that they were doing this relaunch already after Legacy just started, 6 months later, and suddenly they're doing all again after saying they wouldn't do any relaunches, and I get that. It was not handled the best, but ultimately, I just wanted good comics, and that's what we got in a great deal. Even the ones I would say at the bottom of my list, I would still pretty much recommend them for one person or another. So I think Marvel is at one of the best spots it's been in some time. I don't think it's been nearly as bad as many people have said. I think there's been a lot of good books, some that haven't unfortunately got the attention that they deserve. But this, I think, is putting a lot of interesting character creators at cool spots. I think the reshuffling actually makes sense. This actually does feel like a new Marvel, not just a new coat of paint. So with that said, let's get into it. And I'll start with the last book on my list. And I bring this book up with a heavy heart because it's a character I really like by a creator I really like. But ultimately, when I was putting it all together, it just ranked the lowest for me. And I think it's for a lot of different reasons. And that's Deadpool. By Scotty Young. We have 3 issues out so far, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm a huge Scotty Young fan. I love I Hate Fairyland. I enjoy his stuff on Rocky Raccoon that he did. His Wizard of Oz stuff is phenomenal. And I think he's building something here. But by the 3rd issue, I was hoping to enjoy this a lot more than I have. And I think what really didn't sit well with me is I thought the 1st issue was did not hit the mark. It was a little all over the place. It tried to have this interesting structure where it had almost 3 stories in one that it hasn't really followed through since then. And it just seems like, compared to Gary Dugan's run that I thought redefined the character in an interesting way, we're just getting the one-dimensional Deadpool. Maybe that's more on me than the actual character itself. I will say, if you love Deadpool and Deadpool 2 of the movies, I would recommend picking this up rather than a Deadpool series like Despicable Deadpool, because this is much more in tone with that. I like the cast of characters that are being built around, the use of Megasonic Teenage Warhead and how that's come into play, and obviously a movie tie-in, but being so transparent about that. And I thought the 3rd issue, the final issue that's been out so far, was by far the best. So I think eventually Scotty Young will find his kind of voice with this character and what he wants to say with it. But just at this point, it just seems like it's nothing new. If you gave me this Deadpool book and asked me who did it, I really wouldn't have said Scotty Young. It just seems like Deadpool stories that we've kind of seen before. Although I do love the fact that he has an office in a crappy little mall. That's probably one of my favorite bits so far. And the next one is challenging because when you're ranking some of these books, you have some that have 4 issues, you have some that have 1. But The Life of Captain Marvel, I thought had some bits and pieces of it that were really done well, and other things that felt a little heavy-handed. And Carol Danvers is that character that Marvel is just still trying to figure out. She had a really fun series before Civil War II where she was in space with Alpha Flight. You had, Puck and Sasquatch and spaceships, and that was kind of cool. I know it didn't really sell well, but I thought the book itself was great. Then Civil War II comes, and they destroy the character of Carol Danvers, similar to how they did that for Tony Stark in Civil War I. And I think ever since then, they're just trying to fix it in a way. And I think this has done more to fix Carol Danvers than any other book since then. There's a great conversation between her and Tony Stark that I think represents why their relationship is actually quite one of the more underrated relationships within Marvel Comics. I like the idea of trying to redefine her past, add an element of tragedy there that wasn't there before, kind of round out her character. I just thought some of the family bits were a little heavy-handed. The dialogue between her and her brother just seemed off. It just seemed off. It was 2 people that never, they're forcing the different nomenclature and stuff upon them. It just didn't seem like it was natural dialogue, and I wasn't a huge fan of how it ended. I liked the idea of doing a more down-to-earth story with her, and then where it kind of goes with its final reveal. I don't know. Again, we're only one issue in. I enjoyed enough of it that I'm going to be continuing with the second issue. But compared to some of the other stuff, it didn't hit as many marks as many of the other books. The next book was tough to rank. I almost ranked it last. I almost ranked it much higher, but eventually just came here, and that was Fantastic Four. Again, only one issue out with Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four is a hard book to rate because in a vacuum, I think the issue was good. It would be a Fantastic Zero issue, but as a first issue, as the build-up to return to Fantastic Four, there's some things I'm not keen about it. And I don't mind all that much that the Fantastic Four don't return in this. Spoiler alert, but it's all over the place. It's impossible not to review and mention that bit. But I do like what Dan Slott and Sarah Pichelli are building, and I think this series has a lot of promise still. I feel like Marvel undercut itself, and it tried to bring this. I don't know for sure. I don't know what the thought process was, but how this was released on the anniversary of Fantastic Four coming out, and it seemed like you have Marvel 2-in-1 that's been doing such a great job of building interest in the Fantastic Four again, and seeing Chip Zdarsky coming into his own as a writer. And I thought, like, okay, that's a natural build into the Fantastic Four. That's been the story of that book, is bringing back Sue and Reed, and then now that entire story is getting kind of taken over, and this is actually taking place after that seems to be ending, and answers a lot of the questions or solves some of the problems that were happening. So it just seems like you're undercutting a really good book in order just to get something like this out. I don't know. It just seems off-putting. It seems like of all the books that they put out, they've been doing a really good job of with their first issues, and this is the first one I felt like they missed the mark tremendously. The issue itself, like, I think is good. There's a lot of emotion in this book. You see Dan Slott's a student of the game, so he's of course picking up these bits and pieces of Fantastic Four lore that you would expect. But ultimately, getting you excited, kind of giving you that satisfying feeling of all this build up 3 years without a Fantastic Four book, and I have to appreciate the fact that they kind of knew that was going to happen, and then had this thing in the back with Scotty Young kind of explaining it and saying, okay, they'll be back next month. But again, that almost seems like if you knew that was going to happen, why not just do this as a zero issue? I don't know. It seems they want their cake and eat it too, I guess. I don't know. They want their cosmic cake and eat it too, however you want to say it. And not to beat up on Stan Slott. Again, these are all books I like, so just to clarify. But I did really like Iron Man. Tony Stark Iron Man. It just feels a lot lighter compared to a lot of the other books, which is almost somewhat necessary because Bendis' run was rather dire and deep. It was kind of fun to see Tony Stark back being just the flamboyant, fun guy. Although I felt like his Tony Stark so far has been the least interesting character out of the series, and when he's the book's named after him, that's a little problematic. But it's been a lot of fun. The second issue, I thought. Actually, I wasn't as big a fan of. I didn't do a review of it because I didn't get the actual physical copy. But it seemed like it was a little convoluted. It had too much going on, where the first issue didn't have a huge amount. But Dan Slott, he's great at leading those breadcrumbs and bringing them back. And I know there's some people who don't love his writing. I do respect him as a creator, and I think he can weave a very emotional tale more so than he gets credit for. And considering where issue 2 ends, I'm curious to see if just the off the wall fun ends up taking a backseat a little bit. But it's been good. It's just not necessarily one that's gonna, I think, get people super excited for. But it's a good fresh start book in the sense of if you've not read an Iron Man book, you can pick this up and read it and get everything you possibly can need. There's some tie-ins to past characters like Joe Costa, but everything's on the page that you need to know for the story that's being told. The next one is a book I would file under disappointing but still good, and that's Jason Aaron's Avengers, which we have the most out of so far. We know issue 1, boom, and this Jason Aaron's to me Marvel's best writer. I know everyone loves Donny Cates and he's great, but Jason Aaron, I think when he's on his game, there's nothing quite like it, because he can hit an emotional level that, especially with the Mighty Thor run, that I have not seen Donny Cates do yet at Marvel. I've seen him do with God Country, but I want to see, he's big and bold, but I want to see kind of the next level. And with this Avengers story, it's been fun. It's been an improvement over where the Avengers were, but I was just waiting for it to be a little bit more than it was. And I think we got that with issue number 5. Like if every issue was as good as issue number 5, I think the series would be ranked a lot higher. And again, I think this is one that's going to come into its own. Jason Aaron's one of those people that likes to build his story, and he does. It gets better and better as it goes on. To me, it's really been every other issue I've enjoyed more. Like, I liked the first issue. The second issue was okay. Third issue was all right, much better than. But this issue 5 was fantastic. I loved how it ended. I'm really excited for issue number 6, but it just took a little bit longer to get there than I expected. I mean, can't complain too much because we have issue 5 out already, and that's half a year's books in 3 months. And the Ed McGuinness art I haven't liked, but we've already had replacement artists on the book already, and sometimes it just looked a little bit off. But it's been a lot of fun, and I think what he's shown is that one of some of the best bits in this actually has been how he's written Captain America. I knew he could write Thor. I knew he could do Ghost Rider because he did Ghost Rider before, but I wasn't sure how he'd write Captain America. And there's a great. Actually, it happened between 2 issues of Loki and Captain America, talking and debating, and that was a great small moment. And I love the voice that he showed that he kind of understood who Steve Rogers was. Steve Rogers is never going to be the power level of a god, but it's his morality, his bravery that tends to rally the team, and I think that's where he showed that within that conversation. This is another book that's grown on me more and more. And by the 3rd issue, I was kind of sold, and that's Mark Waid, and it's a run on Doctor Strange. And Jose Saez, I probably said that incorrectly, but I love Doctor Strange, and I felt like the book that needed the least a fresh start. And the idea of him going to space kind of made sense. I didn't love the fact that it was him losing his magic again, but by this 3rd issue, it kind of we see more what it's going after, and I really like the use of the omniscient narrator in this. It does a great job, and I like the characterization of Doctor Strange a great deal. How Donny Cates is getting, not Donny Cates, too many writers, how Mark Waid is kind of utilizing his thought process as a doctor much more before, sometimes even visibly sewing things up in a way. And the partnership between the new character that he created, it's basically space Indiana Jones. So by the 3rd issue, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see where there's going. And one of the cool things about Doctor Strange as a hero is that, we talked about Captain America and how his morality is pretty straightforward. With Doctor Strange, it's not that, because he's dealing with characters that don't play by that type of game. Like, he's talking about, affinity gems or eternity, god-like creatures that don't really, you can't necessarily play by the same rules. So because of that, he has to kind of do some not so great things and deal with that guilt as well. So, but I think that really showed itself a lot in the end of issue number 3 here. So if you're a person that maybe didn't love Doctor Strange number 1, I'd give it another chance to try issue 2 and 3, because by issue 3 I was like, okay, actually I kind of get where this is going, and I'm in. The next title is tough because it's the least fresh start of all the books, because it's Jason Aaron doing Thor. So this is a story that's been building for years, and it's continuing that story. Now, you could probably pick this up if you've never read Thor and get most of it, but I don't think you would truly appreciate a lot of what's in it. I know a lot of people have not loved it as much because it has become a little bit more comedic than Jason Aaron's other, Mighty Thor run, and some people don't love Mike Del Mundo's art. I personally love Mike Del Mundo's art. I know that the humor is a little strange. It was hard to get used to, but I'm still in. I still will read a Jason Aaron Thor run any day of the week. So it's not necessarily to the emotional level of the Mighty Thor, or I think Mighty Thor has been the best part of Jason Aaron's Thor run so far, but I think it still has a lot of fun stuff going on, and he's know what he's doing. He's been building this story for years, so I've been liking each issue. If you're talking about books that benefited the most from the Fresh Start Initiative, look no further than Black Panther. I didn't like Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther before this. It felt like someone who was not really comfortable writing comics quite yet. Even when Legacy and he went back and he used like Claw, it didn't necessarily have a comic book feel to it. Then this happens and it's like, oh, he knows comics now. And this is, of all the Fresh Start titles, the most, if you've never read a comic before, you can pick this up because it takes place in the future. And I think some people, don't understand that. We don't necessarily know all the answers yet, but it's taking, imagine Black Panther, his universe, and meshing it together with the Star Wars universe. And it's been that, and it's been a lot of fun. Issue number 2 was great. You legitimately see, T'Challa in space, in a spaceship, kicking butt like you would expect. So it's been crazy. The art by Daniel Acuna has been fantastic. So much so, I think this has actually been delayed, unfortunately. I thought about knocking it down because of that, because Marvel Fresh Start has been a good so far regarding having delays, minus the Punisher book that's now further delayed. But still, I think it's still worth picking up. It's a lot of fun. Even if, like I mentioned, if you didn't like his other run, Ta-Nehisi Coates' other run on Black Panther, no worries. This is him figuring it out a great deal. I'm really looking forward to that continuing. And speaking of Daniel Acuna, I think one thing that's been established throughout the Fresh Start titles is that Marvel has done a good job of fixing the art problem, where I think they've had some not too stellar artists that weren't necessarily, I think, pro-ready yet, doing some major books. I felt with all these Fresh Start books that hasn't happened. There's been some missteps, like I mentioned, with the Avengers, but overall, they've been putting a lot of great artists like Acuna, Mike D'Amondo, and also Ryan Ottley, because next on my list would be Amazing Spider-Man. Writing Ottley on Spider-Man is perfect. It makes a whole lot of sense coming from Invincible, which was very much a different take of the Spider-Man story. His art fits so well into this, and I know a lot of people that the selling point to the series so far has been Mary Jane and Peter Parker are back together, which is good. That piece doesn't really impact my enjoyment all that much, but I do just love the voice that Nick Spencer has for this title. Issue number 2 was pretty good as well. How he's kind of utilizing some classic characters, trying to build a new villain in the background. And really what's been the selling point, again, has been Ryan Ottley's art. I don't have it in this pile, but issue number 3, I thought, I didn't love issue 2, but issue 3 got me back on board a great deal, and we kind of see more, what his agenda is with this book, at least to start off with. So I know, and again, talking about Fresh Starts, Dan Slott, who was on Spider-Man for over a decade, they, I think, had to find the right creative team to take it over, and I think they've done that. So if you're a person who gave up on Spider-Man and looking for a way back in, especially if you like all of the 90s series or kind of like Spider-Man before Brand New Day, this is a good book to pick up because it probably is going to have a lot of what you liked before it all changed. Moving on to, and perhaps I rank this higher because this is my favorite character, but what are you going to do? And it's Captain America. Ta-Nehisi Coates, again, I was excited to see what he would do with Captain America, and it has worked a great deal. Especially him and Linus French's You, there is a stoicism to the way they approach the character, utilizing, obviously taking politics of today and not directly addressing it, but certainly using the ramifications of what happened in Secret Empire within this book, and it just ends up taking what I thought wasn't a great event and making it actually far more interesting. So it's in that way, it's not that fresh start of a title because it's still dealing with issues and story bits that have happened before, but I think there's enough in this to understand what's going on. And I think what's really good about it too is how it's the closest I feel like we've been to how Brubaker utilized his past to kind of define who he was. There's not getting a lot of flashbacks to World War II, but you see, Captain America, Steve Rogers, who's been loyal to one thing, and it's been a dream. And what if that dream is broken? And what if you help break it? And the guilt that he's facing within that, the reasons behind it, using the nuke clones and the nuke soldiers as kind of the representation, especially the history of Captain America and that character play a big role. So in his style and Linda French's You, his art style fit together much more. There's it doesn't utilize any. It doesn't. If it doesn't need to be said, it's not said. If it's not there, it doesn't need to be there. They're very poignant and specific about, from how to utilize backgrounds to the words that are on the page, which is much different than the Ta-Nehisi Coates that wrote before that I felt maybe overly wrote and didn't trust his artist enough. I feel like he's kind of figuring it out. Next is, I think, a book that would probably be number 1 for most people. And it's close to number 1 for me, but that is Venom. So, sorry, books are hard. Venom has been whole lot of fun. And this is coming from a person that's not a huge, gigantic Venom fan. But I'm a big Donny Cates fan. I've been a Donny Cates fan, before he was cool. No, but it really, what got me into it was God Country. And ever since then, I'm like, he's on my radar now. I need to check some stuff out. And Venom has been really good. Ryan Stegman, it's a big reason for that too, how it's like defining the history of the symbiote, making it more of a cosmic being, which I'm not always the hugest fan of. I kind of like character first stuff, and that's probably my biggest drawback of it. I just want to care more about Eddie Brock and give me more reasons of who he is, but I can't deny just the craft. I can't deny just the bold willingness just to go and be insane, and really try new things with a character and make Venom a much more interesting character in some ways. But if you're not a huge Venom fan like myself, try it. You'll probably really enjoy it. And those people that are, I don't know if they'll have an issue with the fact that it's redefining many past stories and saying, no, that's not what happened. But even, Donny Cates even took some time to fill in some holes, the past stories and things like Nowhere, learning the history of Nowhere, how that started. So I do like how Donny Cates is kind of designing his own little corner of the Marvel Universe, itching out like his, solving a lot of questions that have not been solved for some time. And last but not least, if you're doing it by process elimination, for me, the best fresh start title has been Immortal Hulk. And I just really love this book. I love the episodic storytelling of it. I like how it's taking the more monstrous take on the character of Hulk. And I just thought that, Joe Bennett and Al Ewing, they're working together really well. Like Joe Bennett, who, has been a pretty steady artist. I think it's brought his stuff to a new level with this, the way he draws Hulk. He's much more of that classic monster. Al Ewing, I think each issue is... I love picking up a book and not know what it's going to entail, not know what's going to be happening each one. And I think my favorite issue might have been so far was actually issue 3, as we get this reporter going around to different witnesses, getting their story, utilizing different artists to tell that story. I thought it's very, very atmospheric and very kind of taking the character of Hulk and making him a much more interesting character than we've seen in forever. To me, this is the best Hulk book we've had probably since Planet Hulk. The most excited I've been for a Hulk book, really ever, honestly. I'm not a huge Hulk fan, I'll say that. Again, talking about fresh start, huge. If you're a new reader and you're looking to start, this is a book. You don't need to have read any other Hulk book to really pick this up. Yes, there's some ties into Civil War 2 and some ties into things that happened before, but ultimately everything you really need to know are on the page there. It's a Hulk that can die, and it's a Bruce Banner that becomes Hulk not because he's mad, but more when the sun comes down, the Hulk comes out, and he's been on this vengeful crest throughout the United States. If you take the Bill Bixby shelved in the 1960s, 70s, and instead of it being more of an action drama, make it a more horror type of story, that's what Immortal Hulk has been. And to me, it's embodied everything the Fresh Start has been about. Putting new exciting creators on a book that haven't been there before, taking a character and, yes, recognizing the past of the character, but not relying on it a great deal, and being able to etch out a new legacy in a way, speaking of legacy. But let me know what your favorite books have been. What will your ranking be for the books that you've read in Fresh Start? Ones have you love, what ones have you hate, which ones are you still excited for? I didn't include things like miniseries like Sentry or Multiple Man. I just looked at books that were out before and now have new creative team. So, and I also kind of stayed away from the X-Men books because I have something else planned for that. Although I guess Deadpool does count as an X-Men character, depending if the X-Men, well, according to X-Men, that's not the case. But anyways, let me know in the comment section below. If you like this, check out my other reviews. You can, the whole playlist of pretty much all the major titles and my thoughts and opinions, at least the first issue. But until then, just remember, comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one. Until next time, thanks for watching.